Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Zach Pasquarello, and in this video I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about QuickBooks to start your own online bookkeeping business. And I have had a bookkeeping business for the past 3 years, so I've been making these videos every single day to teach you and help you grow your own online bookkeeping business. My only goal is to share my experience, share some of the tips and tricks that I've learned over the past 3 years so that I can help you start your own business and grow a successful online bookkeeping business. If you want to schedule a one-on-one consultation with me, if you have questions about starting a business or bookkeeping in general, I'd be happy to work with you. There's a link in the description below. You can schedule a 1-hour meeting anytime. Okay, so let's jump right into it. I'm going to share my screen with you. That way you can see exactly what I'm doing in QuickBooks. Now, in order to get started, you will need to have your own QuickBooks login. So QuickBooks actually has a free option for accountants. So if you have your own bookkeeping business, or if you're a freelancer or an independent contractor and you want to do bookkeeping for other business owners, you can create your own account. It's completely free. It's called QuickBooks Online Accountant. And with that online accountant account, you will be able to be invited to other people's QuickBooks accounts. So other business owners have their own separate QuickBooks account and they can invite you to their QuickBooks account. So for this example, I made a fake company. I named it Real Estate Investor. You can see the name of the company up here in the top left-hand corner. And I'm going to give you a quick walk through everything you need to know about QuickBooks Online so that you can start your own bookkeeping business and do this for other clients and get paid $300 a month. So the first thing you're going to want to look at is on the left-hand side here, you will see a bunch of different options. The first 3 options here, the first 4 options, overview, books review, dashboard, and tasks, I really don't spend a lot of time with those options. I primarily hang out in this banking tab. That's the first place we're going to go. And inside this banking tab is where you're going to connect your client's bank account directly to their QuickBooks account. So if we go to banking here, this is going to be the first thing I look at if I get invited to a new client's QuickBooks account, or if I'm creating a new QuickBooks account for a client, this is the very first thing I look at. So in here, they might already have several accounts connected. Like in this situation here, there's 2 options. So you can link an account by clicking this button right here, and it gives you the option to search for the bank, and you're going to need the username and password for that particular bank, and then you can connect it directly to QuickBooks Online, and you can reassure all of your clients that QuickBooks has the latest and greatest security features, and you don't have the ability to actually move any money through the QuickBooks account. This is just a mirror image of the bank details. So it pulls in the date, the bank details, and the amount, and then it just pulls the information into your QuickBooks account. You don't actually have the ability to move money. Okay, so you have 2 options. You can username and password log in directly to the bank. Now, if you don't have that ability, or for whatever reason, if the client doesn't want to do that for you or give you that option, you have another option. You can click this down arrow right here and choose upload from file. So you are going to need a CSV file or a .qbo file, and your client will need to download this directly from their bank account. So you might need to walk them through the steps, how to download the activity. Every bank is different, so unfortunately I can't tell you exactly how to do it, but every bank is different, and if you run into any problems, you can always call the customer service directly associated with that particular bank. But once you have the downloaded CSV file or .qbo file, just search for it here and then click on it and then open it, and then once it's opened, just click continue. And then, now this is important, you need to map these transactions to the appropriate account. So if it's not already here, you need to add it. And if it's a checking account, then you'll choose bank and checking for the detail type. If it's a credit card, you'll choose credit card for the account type. The detail type is just credit card, and then you can name it whatever you want. I typically do, if they have multiple credit cards, I'll do like credit card Amex, or I'll do credit card Amex and then like the last 4 numbers of the account. But for this scenario, we're just going to have one checking account and one credit card, so I'll just keep it named credit card. Don't worry about the description. Don't worry about making it a sub account. Just keep it simple, credit card, and then we'll save and close and then continue. Now this is important. This all depends on how you enter the data into your CSV file. So if it's a .qbo file, all of these things are automatic. You won't have to worry about them. But if it's a .csv file, you will need to tell QuickBooks how you labeled the data in the Excel file. So typically, the first row is going to be a header. So for example, you'll put date, description, and amount in the first row. So if you did that, click yes. If you don't have a header in the first row, then click no. For this example, we do. That just tells QuickBooks, don't worry about the first row in the Excel file, only start at the second row. Now, how many columns show amounts? That just means, do you have all of the amounts in one column as positive or negative, or do you have 2 columns, one with money spent and one with money deposited, where both numbers are positive? In this example, we just have one column, so for money that was withdrawn out of the account, it's a negative number. For money that was deposited into the account, it's a positive number. And then lastly, the date format used in your file. I always use this format, month dash day dash year. That's just the most common date format that I've seen. And then make sure this lines up correctly. So in column 1 we have the date, in column 2 we have the description, and then in column 3 we have the amount. So make sure all of those things match correctly. Click continue, and then select all of your data here. Just look through briefly, make sure this looks correct. Make sure the dates look correct. Make sure you don't have anything like 2021 or 2025. Make sure it's all in the correct year that you are importing this information for. Click continue, hit yes, and then wait, import completed. If you have a long list of transactions, it's probably going to take a little bit of time. If you only have several transactions, it'll probably go pretty quickly. Okay, so now we have everything connected and imported to our bank feed. So this is going to be the starting point for all of your bookkeeping. And this is the most basic way to do your bookkeeping. There are obviously other ways to do it. For example, you can go here to this plus new button and you can manually enter expenses and sales receipts and bills and invoices and journal entries over here. I'm not going to talk about any of that. I'm just going through the most basic steps to do your bookkeeping to get started. So this is a very introductory video on how to do the most basic bookkeeping if you're looking to start an online bookkeeping business. Okay, so we've got 2 accounts here. We've got our checking account right here and our credit card account right here. So we can toggle back and forth. We can see here, here's the list of transactions for the checking account, and here's a list of transactions for the credit card. So we're going to start with the checking account. Super basic stuff. I have here the description. I made up all of these transactions. So if you have an actual bank account connected to this bank feed, it's going to be a lot more numbers and letters and symbols and a lot more obscure data when they pull in the bank detail. So it's going to be a little bit more complicated than this, but generally from the bank detail you should be able to tell what the transactions are. And if you ever have any questions, if you ever don't know how a transaction should be categorized, or maybe you have no idea what a transaction even is, never be afraid to ask your client what this is, because I guarantee your client will always appreciate if you are more thorough and more detail oriented, trying to get the right answer instead of trying to do it quickly without asking any questions. So take your time. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That way you know you're doing things correctly. So you need to worry about 2 things. Who did you pay and what's the category? Those are the 2 big questions. You're going to have tags. I never really worry about tags. So unless your client is very particular about tags, don't worry about tags. And then the memo right here, it just defaults to include the bank detail directly from the bank. Don't change it unless you really want to, or unless your client really wants you to add specific bank details to the memo. Okay, so very simply here, QuickBooks no longer gives you a long list of chart of accounts, so you don't have to worry about filtering through a bunch of predetermined chart of accounts, but what that does mean is you're going to need to add all of these new accounts if you're working with a brand new QuickBooks account, which is not a problem. It's not intimidating. If you ever have a question as to what typical chart of accounts a business owner would use, I'm sure you can go to Google and do a quick search and find a common list of chart of accounts. So for this example, we're going to start off with interest earned. So if we go up here, similar to how we created that credit card account, except now we're going to do income. And I know right off the bat that interest earned is actually considered other income. So we're going to choose other income and then interest earned. It might take you a little while you're getting familiar with the software. You might have to go to income first and look at the detail types. And QuickBooks actually gives you a nice little explanation right here, kind of explaining what that detail type means. But for this example, we're going to go to other income and then interest earned. And then we're just going to keep that name nice and simple, interest earned. Save and close. And then that is it. So for interest earned, I typically don't add a customer just because it's pretty straightforward. And then all we do is we add it. So this transaction has now been added to our chart of accounts, our general ledger. It's going to show up on our profit and loss statement as other income, interest earned. Okay, so the next transaction here, we have insurance. So for the vendor, I'm going to keep it simple and just create a vendor insurance company. Click here, add insurance company. Then a little screen is going to pop up, and then we click save. If we want, we can click on this button to add details. If not, just click save, and then once again, we're going to need to add a new category, and this is going to be an expense. So we'll scroll down here to expenses, detail type. We will choose insurance, and then save and close. So this is going to show up on our profit and loss under the category titled insurance, and we are adding an expense of $545 from January 25th. Super simple. Click add. Amazon, we have a transaction that went to Amazon. So QuickBooks automatically recognizes certain companies, and they give you an option just to click add Amazon. We'll save that. And then if you want, if your client is sending you receipts, you can add attachments to transactions. So if they're giving you a PDF or a picture of a receipt, you can add the attachment there. And then once again, we will create a new category, Amazon. So if you don't know what they're buying at Amazon, feel free to ask them. Typically, what I see people is office or general administrative expenses. So office supplies. So I will save that. Now, once again, this is being added to our profit and loss statement, added to our chart of accounts, added to our general ledger, all of those things just by adding these transactions on the bank feed. So super simple. You know the information is right because the date and the bank detail and the amount are automatically pulled in from the bank account. So you know it's accurate, and we click add. Another one here, Comcast. Once again, QuickBooks recognizes Comcast as a vendor. We'll add them as a vendor. We'll click save. And then I'm also going to add this as office and general administrative expenses. I'm assuming this is probably their internet bill for their office. So I'm going to keep that category, office and general administrative expenses. So you have two options. Whenever you're working with a new client, you can ask them a bunch of questions up front, like, hey, how do you want me to categorize this Comcast transaction? Or what you can do is you can go up here into the search bar, and if they already have existing transactions, you can just do a quick search for something like Comcast, and then you can go to the vendor and you can go to the most recent transactions that were already categorized as Comcast, and you can see how they were categorizing them before, and I would just continue doing with whatever was being done in the past. Okay, next transaction here we have Home Depot. I will add Home Depot as a vendor, and then I will create a new category for Home Depot, and for this I'm going to say expenses, and then we'll see if there's a supplies and materials category. So they're a real estate investor, so they probably went to Home Depot to buy some supplies and materials for one of their properties, and then we're going to add that. Okay, now we have an independent contractor. So this is probably, we'll say this is John Smith, independent contractor. We will add. Now this is really important. So anytime you see a new independent contractor or a new person providing some type of professional services or maybe advertising and marketing or repairs and maintenance, it's important that you tell your client you need their W-9 information. And here's where you're going to add it. So we have a new vendor pull up here. We have first name, last name, and then you want to make sure you get their address. So you have their address here, and then very important that you get their social security number. So either their EIN or their social security number, and then if they are eligible to get a 1099, make sure you click this button and say track payments for 1099. That way at the end of the year, whenever it's time to do your taxes and file your 1099s, you can use QuickBooks and you can run the report easily and quickly, and you can file your clients 1099s for them, because throughout the year you have been diligent in collecting W-9s for all of their new independent contractors. Very important that you remind your clients, anybody you pay more than $600 for services and labor, you need to give them a 1099. So John Smith here, we're going to add a new category, and this will be another expense, and we will just call this cost of labor. And then we're going to add that. Okay, we've got two more here. We have rental income. So like I said, this is a real estate investor, so they do have rental income. And we will identify the customer as Jane Doe. We'll save that. And then you can either do one of two things. You can choose sales for the category, or you can add a new category under income, and then probably service or fee income. And then we can rename it rental income, save and close, add that transaction. Simple as that. Okay, last one, we've got office rent here, and we'll say that we're paying the landlord, vendor, save, create a new category, expenses. There's probably going to be already, let's see, rent or lease of buildings, save and close. You can add an attachment, like I said. You can change the memo, like I said. We can make it January rent. You can do whatever you want, as detailed as you want. Talk to your client, see what they want you to do, and then we can add that. Okay, so now everything for the checking account has been updated. Now we're going to go to the credit card. So one thing that I like to do when I'm working with credit cards or checking accounts, once you get more comfortable with the client, sort by the description. So you'll see here we've got gas station, we've got Home Depot, McDonald's, and airplane ticket, but everything is sorted by the description. So if you have multiple transactions to the same vendor, it's all going to be grouped together here. Okay, so for this example, we have an airplane ticket. So for this, we'll say Southwest Airlines, add them as a vendor, and then create a new category once again. And it's pretty intuitive. Once you get the hang of it, you already know that an airplane ticket will be travel. Save and close, add. And then once you deliver your profit and loss to your clients on a monthly basis, have them look it over, and if they want you to change any categories or reallocate any transactions to a different category, that's the perfect time for them to tell you, hey, I see you did this travel, but I actually want this to be broken up. Can we do a subcategory under travel, one for hotels and one for airplane tickets? Sure, that's great. I actually love whenever my clients give me more instruction and more in detail. That just makes it easier for me to do my job. Okay, now all three of these gas stations, so we can do this pretty simply. We can highlight all three transactions and we can update them all at once. Transaction type, expense, payee. We'll just keep it generic and say gas station. So sometimes this comes up as a customer. We want to make sure we choose the correct type. So we know this is a vendor, not a customer. It's very important that you do this correctly. Vendor, save, and then we can lump this under travel, or you can create a new category for car and truck or auto expenses or fuel, whatever you want, whatever makes the most sense for your client and their business. We'll say travel, This is a very good point here. I never use rules. So I always say, don't show me this again. Never save a rule. Just my personal preference. Okay, we'll do McDonald's here. McDonald's, vendor, save. I know we need to create a new category, add new. Type, expenses, detail type. We will say this is a travel meal, and then we can save and close, and we can add that. We're almost done here. We're gonna do Home Depot. Once again, we can select these two. Transaction type, it's an expense. Payee, I think we already have Home Depot, and we already have supplies and materials. Now this last transaction here, we received $43.56 from Home Depot. What does that mean? It probably means that the client returned something and got a refund. So not a big deal. We still want to categorize it the same way we would an expense. So this is just going to reduce their expenses under supplies and materials. It's a refund. Negative $43.56 will show up on their expenses. So Home Depot, supplies and materials, categorize it the exact same way. It's just going to show up as a negative. Okay, so we've successfully categorized all of the transactions. The example I showed you was very basic and very straightforward. I promise you, you will have to work with your client and you will have to ask your client a bunch of questions. So it's not going to be this easy. But that's the general principle behind categorizing transactions. Go to the bank feed, type in the payee and the category, and add the transactions accordingly. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask your client. Okay, that's banking. That's how you categorize transactions. Now, there's only 3 steps that you need to know for basic bookkeeping fundamentals. Categorize transactions, reconcile your accounts, and generate your profit and loss. So that's the first step. Banking, categorize your transactions. Now, all this extra stuff here, sales, cash flow, expenses, workflows, projects, payroll time, budgets, all of that extra stuff, you're going to need it eventually, but if you're just getting familiar with bookkeeping, don't worry about that too much. Master the 3 fundamentals: categorizing transactions, reconciling your accounts, and generating financial reports. Okay, so second of all, now we need to reconcile. So at the very bottom here, we're going to go to the accounting tab, and then we're going to choose reconcile. Now you're going to do this every single month, and you're very simply going to request bank statements from your client, and you're going to make sure that the amount in their checking account matches the amount in their Quickbooks. So we just added all of those transactions. I am going to do something real quick just because this is a made-up account. I'm going to say that there was $10,000 in the account whenever we got started here at the end of 2022. So that's going to, and you might actually need to do this. So this is just a real quick crash course in journal entries. So we are going to say the date, end of the year last year. We're going to debit checking account, and we are going to credit the opening balance equity. So this is going to increase the checking account and increase opening balance equity by $10,000, and this is just saying that this checking account had $10,000 at the end of the year last year, but we just started doing their bookkeeping in 2023, so we don't have a proper transaction flowing through the bank feed for 2023, so we're just establishing that the initial opening balance of the checking account was $10,000. Okay, so now we're going to look at their January bank statement, and you can do one of 2 things. You can ask your client to give you view-only access to their checking account, which is always the preferred method. That way you have your own username and password, and that way you can log in directly to your client's Quickbook or to your client's bank account, and you can pull their bank statements directly. If they're not willing to do that, that's fine, not a deal breaker. They are just going to need to download their bank statements on a monthly basis and send them to you. So at this point, we're done categorizing January transactions. We just requested that they send us their January bank statement, and we looked at the bank statement and we see the ending balance for the month of January is $6,903.74. It should be very clearly written on their bank statement. Ending balance as of January 31st, 2023 is $6,903.74. Now we start reconciling, and this is going to take all of the transactions from the month of January or from the last time you reconciled the accounts, and it's going to take the beginning balance, which in this case was $0. It's going to add all of the money you deposited into the checking account, which in this case $3.50 of interest, $1,000 of rental income, plus that opening balance of $10,000. It's going to add in all of the additions. It's going to subtract out all of the money that you spent, which in this case was $4,099.76. And then it's going to give you the ending balance in QuickBooks, and it's going to let you know if that matches the number that you typed in from the bank statement. In this situation, it does. We have a $0 difference, that magical green check mark. But if it didn't, let's just say we were missing a transaction, it would give you this yellow exclamation mark with a negative $67.87 difference. So if that ever happens, you just need to go back through the bank statement and try to find which transaction you're missing. In this case, it's very simple. It's that transaction, just for example purposes. Now we know that every transaction is accounted for, everything has been entered correctly, penny for penny, because there is no variance from what's in QuickBooks and what's in the bank account. So we click Finish Now. Now the last step, so we've categorized transactions, we've reconciled the accounts. Now the last step is to go to Reports. And this is the most important step. This is all your client cares about. So you're going to send them the profit and loss. You can do one of two things. You can search for it in this screen here, or you can just come up here and type profit and loss. You can search for it and you can find it. Now we can go for the report period. We'll do last month, but you can see here they have a bunch of options. This month, all date, today, next week, last year. So we can look at a bunch of different time periods. For this example, we'll do last month. And then we can see here this real estate investor has everything on their profit and loss. And this is what the client really cares about. This is what they want to see. And I always recommend send this to your client in the first 10 days of every single month. So if it's February 5th, you want to make sure that within the next 2 or 3 days you send your client January profit and loss, done, categorized, and reconciled. So it has all of their income at the top here, all of their expenses, nice and neat and categorized and totaled up here, and then their other income, interest earned, and then finally their net income takes all of their income, subtracts out all of their expenses, and then they get their net income. Then you can very simply click this button right here, export to PDF, save it to your computer, email it to your clients. That's all you need to know. Basic fundamentals of bookkeeping. Categorize your transactions, reconcile your accounts, generate your financial reports.